Hello, can you see me?
I can see your lovely smiling face. I'm a lucky man for it.
Thank you.
How are you, my dear?
Oh, I'm great. I'm just having a fabulous day so far. How about you?
Very good, very good. Although the day is yet young, I have challenges and exciting projects ahead of me, not the least of which is your lovely self. And I've been studying a little bit from the wonderful information you sent me. And I am so pleased to know you even just a little bit, and I look forward to knowing you a little bit more.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So I'm starting my recording process now.
Okay.
And in just about a minute, I'll be able to say, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome Lesley Constable, an artist, a poet, a writer, a critic, an educator, and most of all, a wonderful creative person outside all the boxes. And when I read in her bio that she feels inspired by the concept of a magical realism, that's one of the best boxes you could have, I suspect. And being a person myself who's been graced with insights, with visions, with inspiration outside the human rational box, I have to say, my gosh, I'm welcome to meet you. Leslie, so you've been an artist since you were young. Talk about your early art. What were some of the things that motivated you? What inspired you? Talk a little bit about the young Lesley.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, I have a rather mythic structure to my life.
I bet.
In itself. Yeah, and I'm really more about what I do and what interests me rather than my identity and all that. I'm more curious about life and others than myself, but
sure.
So it's fine to begin with some of that. Yeah, I'm a dual citizen. My father American, my mother English. They met during the war. Wonderful romantic story. He was injured in my mother's hometown regarding training ops to be, to go over to the European theater, as it was called, and they put him in a bed to recuperate next to my mother's British Army cousin. So that's
how fortuitous.
Yes, it's such a charming story. And so there were a lot of transatlantic crossings vis-a-vis ships that were involved, and they got engaged by mail and they were married in Bristol.
How nice. How nice.
And then, yeah, I was on the way, and my father, who was a journalist, couldn't get work in Britain after the war. And so he got a job sight unseen at a newspaper in Ohio, where he stayed for 40 years. So that involved another voyage 6 weeks before my birth. So I did a transatlantic voyage. They let pregnant women on ships back then, that far along. So that was sort of my beginning. So yeah, a lot of fun, but I just have a lot of that sort of stuff going on. The other very odd thing about my beginnings is that I started life as a fraternal twin. And it's very rare when that it happens, but it does. I've been told medically that my mother miscarried my twin brother.
Wow.
And didn't know she was still expecting. And yeah.
You're a surprise baby, huh?
Yeah. So anyhow, they kept the secret. They kept it a secret. They kept it hidden from me until I turned 18. It was like, and then my father said, "Oh, we've better tell her now." And I tell me what. They said, "You were a twin," and I went, "I know," which I did, because I had this imaginary twin friend named Timothy who used to apparently float up and get stuck on the ceiling. And there was my very pragmatic English mother with a little step ladder trying to say, is he here? Is he here?
Oh, marvelous.
So my British family, they're all, West Country sort of fairy folk types. And so it's like, oh, it's the fairy folk, all that stuff. And so the other funny little aspect to me is that, and my father was, he was a jazz musician. He was really hip. Wow. He was a poet. He was a painter himself, a Shakespearean scholar, blah, blah, blah. But he really loved Picasso, which some people don't. I happen to. And so right before my birth, they had Picasso prints all over the apartment. And so they placed one to the side of my crib. And,
my goodness.
And so I recall, it's like Picasso was my fairy godfather because
talk about imprinting. Wow, that's amazing.
And so I would stare at, and I don't remember those early months,
sure,
that early time, but then as a toddler and then a child, I would, we had them all over the apartment, so I would stare at them and interpret them and that sort of thing.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I didn't have a chance,
No Frederick Remington here.
No, so yeah, and I still go to whenever I'm in Barcelona, I go to the Picasso Museum there and stand in front of, he did a series one day after another of homage to Velázquez's Las Meninas, or the La Infanta, that wonderful painting. And so he did huge, like almost room-sized paintings day after day of sort of breaking down that painting. And I stand, whenever I visit there and I stand in front of it, I start crying. It just, well, you know how that happens. It just is very
absolutely.
And so at one point I went again, and the guard says to me, oh, and I speak good Spanish. She says, oh, you are the one who cries. And I took that as such a sincere compliment.
Absolutely.
And so he gave me some space, and and of course I started crying again. But Picasso to me is like I said, my fairy godfather. So
well, if you'll permit me, one of my artistic early momentous ones was I was so fortunate as a young child. The elementary school that I went to, the principal was so inspired by music. She made sure that every first or second grader got a chance to attend the great Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra in the most beautiful hall, a late 19th century building, so beautifully done. Yeah. And when I went, here I am in first grade, I was so completely transported. It was a Tchaikovsky show, and I just started weeping. It was so breathtakingly, achingly beautiful that I just started crying. I was so touched. And the principal came over to me, dear woman, just the dearest woman. She said, Ricky, what's wrong? And I said, it's so beautiful. I can remember it to this day. She said, yeah, but what's wrong? And I said, it's so
nothing.
Beautiful. And so, you know what? That dear woman let me go with every class that went. The entire 6 years that I attended that school, I got to go with every group that went, because she knew that this meant something very, very special.
Oh, bless her. She understood. Oh, how wonderful.
What a launch. What a launch. So I got a chance to play. I began trumpet 2 years ahead of my peers because I just had to play trumpet. I was touched by these two films, the biopic of George Gershwin life, which is I gather now much irrelevant to what his really experience was, but the Gershwin biopic and then the Bix Beiderbecke biopic called A Man with a Horn. So I started playing trumpet early, but enough about me. My dear Lesley, so you've been both a graphics person, it seems to me, as well as a writing person. So when did you really begin to know that you really didn't have a choice? You were a writer and a teacher, I might add.
Well, my mother had to get a lot of advice from all the West Country folk in terms of how to manage me. And they just said, well, she's just one of those. The fairies were present at her birth. They handed out a lot of stuff to her. So, and she was always on the phone because she just didn't, or, on the phone or the writing letters because she just didn't get it. And So anyhow, one of them was like stick crayons in her hands.
Excellent. Excellent.
Give her something to do. And I lived grew up across from this remarkable estate called Black's Woods in Mansfield, Ohio. And Mrs. Black, a very wealthy woman, gave me free reign over her woods. And I built little forts under the juniper trees, and she had a stable, and so I got to see the foals when they were born and blah, blah, blah. So I had a lot of help. And also there were a lot of elderly neighbors around us. And Mansfield, Ohio was like a settlement center, probably like Pittsburgh or a lot of the, the industrial areas, in the United States. But it was the settlement center after World War II. So my whole graduating class, we were like citizens of the world. I mean, they were either born somewhere else, moved when they were tiny, or they were, just their families had come over and they were born in the United States. I was just one of many of first generation of whatever on one side. And so it was just a real, amazing environment to grow up in. And all the elderly neighbors around my house spoke other languages. I guess I spoke German, so that Mrs. Hunsinger would give me cherry strudel that she and I was the little kid who went and visited all the elderly neighbors, and I had very good manners, and I loved to listen to their stories, and I loved their company. So that was another thing that, I was sort of given to do, and my curiosity about how other people were, and then going and visiting my friends, over at their houses. In many cases, that the parents didn't speak good English at all, and so my friend, the kid was the interpreter. And so I got to see all the artwork on their walls and, smell their cooking and taste it. And it was all different. And so I think that amplified everything too. I guess I don't know where I'm going with this, but
it's okay.
Yeah,
it was a lovely voyage. By the way, I lived in Massillon, Ohio in 53, 54.
Massillon. Oh, I absolutely know where that is. Totally. Excellent. So yeah, moving on. I think that, and my dad was a writer. He was a poet himself. He had an amazing library. In my family, we talked about art. My mother was a good dancer. I ended up also as a modern dancer at one point. And so I went to symphony.
Now, may I ask?
Ballet.
Merce Cunningham, Isadora Duncan, whose dance captured you?
Thanks for saying Merce Cunningham. I actually, when I was cutting my teeth as an arts writer, I did a lot of dance reviews, and I had honor, privilege of seeing Merce Cunningham perform with John Cage, his pal. And I wrote about it. So I have the review somewhere.
Oh, that's wonderful. That must have been, well, I'm sure it's quite memorable.
Right. But then I was an Ohio State girl, and I ended up teaching there and, you know, being an art curator there, blah, 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 blah. But wow, what amazing. You know, I saw Twyla Tharp. I saw Alvin Ailey, Paul Taylor, all the greats of dance. And as a dancer,
wonderful.
And a writer, I was able to write because my body knew what was going on. I was able to write about dance in a very, very simple way, so that, you know, in non-technical terms, so that the reader could pretty much follow along. But, and then, you know, all the, you know, the political people I saw, and Luis Borges, and just I can't even remember all of them. I interviewed Madeleine L'Engle, the writer who, if you recall her, Mrs. What's It and Who's It, and I forget. Oh, A Wrinkle in Time. I interviewed her. I interviewed Yoko Ono. I have a tape of. Yeah, I did.
What was your first impression
of Yoko Ono?
Sure.
How amazingly gracious she is as a being.
You know, a lot of people had just tremendous trouble finding appreciation in her vocalizations, in her musical work. I never had that problem, because my taste run from avant-garde through the classics and beyond. I was a very, very late comer to rock and roll. I didn't really begin to appreciate it until probably the late, at least the late 60s, early 70s. I was a jazz and classical artist. I had no use for pop music whatsoever.
I get it.
Until I heard Jim Morrison and Frank Zappa, I went, okay, maybe there's something there that can speak to me. But I so totally appreciate it. And I remember sitting at parties in the late 60s, early 70s, when the double side came on. There was John and there was the Yoko side. And my friends were just holding their ears and yowling. And I said, wait a minute. Yes, it's not melodic, but that's okay. Can you give yourself a minute to listen? I like to work. I like to work tremendously. Now, I love John's work, especially the political stuff. I had no use for their 60s early stuff, that want to hold your hand crap. But
or Love Me Do.
Not my cup of tea. But the political stuff, absolutely. So let's talk for just a moment or two about what it was like, young artists by national, as we walk through the Vietnam War years. Very interesting time for artists.
Absolutely. Well, I had a lot of fun.
Nice answer. And if you want to leave it at that, I understand, because it was a complicated time.
No, I had oodles of fun, and I saw Hendrix and Cream and the Animals, and I saw the Beatles. August 14th, 1966, I did.
No kidding.
And I saw Airplane, then later Starship. I got my job as an arts writer after I graduated from J School, journalism school at Ohio State. I got my job because of Paul Kantner.
No kidding.
Starship. I'll tell you the story real quick. It's like,
no rush.
So the editor is like, all right, well, let's see if you got what it takes. You know, I love my dad was a journalist. I love those guys. It's like,
how about some bait, you
put the story to bed yet? Like, get so-and-so on the horn. You know, those just gravelly voices, just hilarious. I loved all of them. Curmudgeons, all of them. But so he said, I'll tell you what, he says, I've got 2 tickets to the Starship concert. He says, here they are, go cover it. Here's a pass to get into the dispatch, up on the 6th floor, there'll be computers, file your copy. And if you do a good job, you got the job. So
all right, all right.
Had my 2 tickets to ride, show up at the concert, right? And got some good seats there. Well, took a friend with me. And so, you know, back in the day, the Angels, the Hells Angels used to police the concerts. You know, they were in the first 2-3 rows. So, you know, I've got, you know, when I saw Airplane in 68, obstreperous person that I am, I toddled up all by my lonesome and placed my elbows on the stage. I was taking pictures and I felt this tap on my shoulder. I look around, there's this big, but I love the Hells Angels. They were looking out for me and my girlfriends all the time to make sure that, you know, we were, you know, they called us little ladies, you know, that was real sweet. So I love the Hells Angels. So I look up and there's this big Hells Angel and he's like, you gotta sit down. And I looked back and I said, look, I paid for my ticket, same as you. And I'm just gonna take a few pictures and then I'll sit back down. And my friends were cringing because they thought, my male friends were cringing because they thought they were gonna get creamed, you know, by these guys. I took the photo, sat back down. And then on the break, you know, walking around the mezzanine, and this guy comes up starts heading towards me. And my male friends are going, oh my God, we're gonna get creamed. And he goes like, sorry, little lady, you know, it was just, we were policing it. And I just thought that, you know, I'm real apologizing.
Wow. So, I hope you included that in the article, an apology from Hell's Angels. Wow.
No, so this was in 68. So fast forward to like early 80s and I see Starship. So man, you know, those guys and I have this connection. So here I am covering the thing to try to get the job, right? And so Paul starts getting upset with security, and it was, what venue was it in Columbus, Ohio? I think Vets Memorial. There we go.
Can I interrupt just for a second?
Sure.
I'm curious, journalist to journalist. Was your plan to cover the music, the performance, or both?
Well, nice question. I was supposed to review the performance. Okay. This was that was the gig. It was to review the performance. And so,
I apologize.
Oh, no problem. But, you know, you had your little, back in the day, you had your little reporter's notebook that supposedly fit in the palm of your hand. I've got a small hand. So, you know, and then I had to fashion how my little finger works. So I didn't write over what I'd already written in the dark. Right. So here I am taking notes. And Paul keeps getting upset because the security people are telling the fans to get out of the aisles and sit back down in their seats. And Paul keeps stopping and going like, look, there are fans. It's cool that they're, you know, in the aisles and dancing. You know, it was sort of part of the, you know, the Haight-Ashbury, you know, that whole thing. Yeah. And he started getting really upset. And then the guard jumped up on the stage for whatever reason. I don't think anybody knew, and sort of wanted, you know, was giving Paul attitude about this. Well, Paul took his guitar and kabonged him.
Holy smokes.
The dude dropped to his knees.
Wow.
Dropped.
Wow.
All hell broke loose. Then they had called the police, and a line of about 10, you know, 10 cops came on the stage, you know, completely shut it down. So there I'm like story here. And so I get up and I've got my little press pass thing on. So I got backstage, and because they couldn't find Paul, and but they shut the concert down. And so I interviewed Gracie Slick, and I swear to God, I heard that, bless her heart, I heard that she was a heavy drinker, but this confirmed it, because I swear to God, if somebody had lit a match, we both would have. Right. But then I interviewed Marty Balin, who died a few years ago. I was a big fan of Marty's, and And they were like, well, we don't know what happened to him. And so anyhow, one of them sort of winked at me and said, I think he might be in the bus. And but yeah, and so anyhow, I sort of went back to the bus. So and I interviewed the cops, blah 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 blah. So I got back to the newsroom.
What a great story!
Yeah, and so I did the review, and so I was.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Don't please. You go back to the bus.
I go, I go back to the bus and I try to look. I sort of tapped on the door, and all the roadies were sort of grinning at me. And I said, "Look, guys, I'm a fan. I'm not going to rat Paul out. What are you kidding me? And so it was like really, really fun. And everybody was sort of circling the wagons to protect Paul. I'm sure he was in there, or they'd hidden him somewhere. But anyhow, they never found him, and it all got dropped or whatever. So anyhow, I go back to the newsroom and I'm going, how do I approach this? Okay, I'm going to do a straight review.
Right, TikTok, yep.
Yeah, what that was what I was hired for. But I'm going to do a sidebar of like a breaking news story. And it got featured. The editor was really happy for me and for what I did, and I got the job. Thanks, Paul.
Very good.
Anyhow, I sort of digress, but anyhow, it was, I had a lot of fun. And then later on, I was made art critic. This is down the road a bit.
Sure.
It was a lot of fun. And then when Yoko had released John's drawings as lithographs and had released them worldwide to various amounts of, galleries here, there, and everywhere. One of them was in Columbus, Ohio. So it was my territory. And so it's like, great. I put it on the docket that I was going to review it. And I said to my editor, a woman I really had a lot of respect for, I said, I'd like to interview Yoko Ono. And she said, why would you want to do that? She's the bitch who broke up the Beatles. And so I went, she said, well, do what you want. And so,
okay. I can live with that.
And so I endeavored to find the connection, and I had to get permission, blah, 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 blah. And they said, okay, we'll let her know that you're interested. And I said, can I record it? And they said, sure, and all that. And then they said, but call back in a couple days at this time, and we'll tell you if you've been granted permission. I found out later that her system with all this, because journalists had given her such a hard time.
Oh, the poor thing, my God.
It was terrible. So she had, of course, was a little bit of trepidation about journalists, right? And I'm like, tell her I'm a fan of hers. I have her Blue album, and so anyhow, I found out later from people sort of in the know that time period was because she consulted her psychic.
Well, she was very big in that universe, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I have to say that I was psychically approved.
Hey, the universe said it was cool, so hey, you're in. That's wonderful. She was so cool. And the other thing is, she told me little stories. I'll send you the tape if you want to hear. Oh, I'd love to hear. Oh, absolutely. That's such a gift. Thank you.
But yeah, she said and we talked about her voice. We talked about her a lot because, as an artist, I knew who she was.
Yeah.
And so,
quite an artist in her own right before John.
Absolutely. And so we talked about, she even mentioned like the B-52s, that she thought she was influential. And remember the song Rock Lobster, that. Yeah. So anyhow, I had a real cool time. And the 60s, oh man, I couldn't have had more fun if I had tried. And I tried to have fun, but I did a lot of cross-country road trips, east to west. And I still love road trips. I've done now.
Let me ask you one more question in your critic hat. Mm-hmm. Of all the rock shows, of all the rock bands you wrote about, which one sticks out the most? Which one either impressed you or disappointed you the most? Which one surprised you the most? Just one. I'm sure that's hard to do, but
it's hard to do. I covered a lot of blues too, because I love blues, and my first boyfriend was a blues guitarist, so I was their manager.
Good for you.
Got him gigs and stuff. Anyhow, but I have to say, and this is gonna seem really odd, Coco Taylor.
She's
Did
very
you know who she was?
Yeah.
So yeah, blues singer. I was really impressed with her. I mean, you know, I saw so many greats.
Sure.
In terms of soul, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Coco Taylor comes to mind. Jay Giles put on a good show too. But well, Starship that rocked it, so that just stands out. But
Blows Against the Empire as Airplane and their Starship stuff was top notch, just top notch. I had a chance to see him a couple times myself.
Oh, did you?
Oh, wow. Yeah. In fact, I got to see a lot of bands that when they were just starting out. I worked for a concert company as production manager, sound engineering, lighting design, staging, logistics, all that stuff. I staged a lot of people. One of my favorite stories was we had Bobby Blue Bland and B.B. King for a double night. Okay. But before that, one of my real favorite blues shows, we called it the Night of Three John Stars. We had John Hammond, John Lee Hooker, and Dr. John.
Whoa.
And I came up with a gimmick that as each John hit the stage, I lowered a brilliant star of sequins and hit it with a blue spot. So by the end of the night, I had 3 blue stars up there, and each one, you know, very different styles, but every one of them was just magnificent. But I was going to tell you a B.B. King story. This is so funny. I worked for a concert company that was a not-for-profit, okay? And consequently, there was a lot of things that we did at any rate. At one point, the very last night of planning before the show, the young lady who did PR said, I've got this great idea. Let's draw a ticket number that night at the show and somebody can get their picture taken with B.B. King. Well, I wasn't thrilled with that because I think that a lot of times cute little white people impose on major stars to no end. And it's often, if it's not fully insulting, it's just this side of insulting. And I said, please, no, look, we're paying them. They're working hard. They're artists. You know, don't give them a little space. Let them have just that little bit of dignity. Please, no. It wasn't going to happen. Okay. So first part, before the show starts, B.B. King's manager, who was a charming fellow, New Orleans to the git, derby, cane, vest, bag of gree. He comes out to me and he says, now, Richard, who's going to take care of me? And I said, well, that gentleman over there, that's the producer, and he'll have the money at the end of the night, and he'll take care of you. He said, no. Who's going to take care of me? And I said, well, let me explain something. I'm the technical manager, technical producer. I cover all bases, but there's 2 things I don't do. I don't procure women or drugs. I don't do it. But anything other than that, I'm your man. And he said, now look, this is Miami. Who's going to take care of me? I said, oh, okay. All right, the guy over there with the leather bag, I think he'll have anything you need. So BB played the fastest blues that night I'd ever heard. Now,
he was a cool guy, you know, don't you think?
A wonderful guy, absolutely wonderful guy. And they suffered in position quite nicely, very generous of them. The other thing was, now we had a double show. Bobby Blue Bland, B.B. King, Bobby Blue Bland, B.B. King, with a break in the middle to change audience, right? So our schedule was very tight. It was a union hall. We had to get in and get out and get done, do on to the next. So I warned the PR gal. I said, listen, if we're going to do this, I mean, if you absolutely have to do your little drawing and have the little nice person go back there with the BB and get his picture taken, that's all well and good, but it's got to be done in time. I'm time critical. So I said, I'll give you a 20-minute warning, a 15-minute warning, a 10-minute warning, a 5-minute warning, and then we got to go. There's no spare time. So I send my guy, gives her the 20-minute warning, gives the 15-minute warning, gives her the 10-minute warning, the 5-minute warning. She's not there. So I turned to BB's orchestra and said, go, you're on. So they get out there and they're tearing into a very lively big band blues. Okay, BB's in the wings, they're ready to go. Here comes the PR gal. Why'd you let them start? I said, there's this thing called time, see? And like, we had to go. And she goes, oh no, you got to stop them. So I turned to the producer, her boyfriend. I said, listen, we don't have time for this. I missed, you know, I gave him the warnings. She missed the warnings. It's time. They're on, man. They're on. He said, Rick, can't you stop them? And I said, sure. So I walk out. Yeah, there's like 20-piece blues orchestra tearing up the stage. I said to the band director, the music director, I said, listen, we have an emergency announcement we have to make. He stops the orchestra in full tear. Here comes PR gal. Hi, we're going to draw a card now so Johnny and Mary can come backstage during the break and have the picture taken. I didn't make any friends that show.
Wow, what an experience, though, that you did that. How many years were you doing that? That's amazing.
I did it for a little more than 12 years.
Oh, wow.
Oh, some amazing things. One other story I'll tell you real quick.
Privilege. Oh, no, this is great. I just can't believe that. Oh, what a
3-day jazz and blues festival. The closing day, I got John Mayall up on the stage.
Oh, John Mayall.
And I got 5 stages going, right? So I've got stage managers on each one. I'm bopping from stage to stage, depending on whatever the problem is needed. And I get a call from the Mayall stage. They go, Rick, you got to come over here right away. And I said, okay, now also this is 83, 84. Miami is Miami Vice right now, okay? A lot of skiing going on. A lot of skiing.
Yeah, I get you.
So I said, what's the problem? He said, well, John Mayall's got a 5th of whiskey and a gun. He's waving them on the stage. And I go, okay, I'll be right there. So I buzz over to the stage. George Wein from the Wein, big North Sea Jazz Festival and Newport Jazz is backstage. And my stage manager is black gentleman. He has white. He's like, man, I'm not going anywhere near that. And I said, I understand. I'll do it. So I walked up in the wings. And I said, John. And he looks over and I said, John, look, this is Miami. They shoot first and ask questions later. Put the gun down. And he went, oh, yeah, okay. So he brings me the gun.
Oh my God. It reminds me of that Talking Heads. What's that? Put away that gun, this party's simple.
Okay, enough about me. Let's then talk. Okay, so you've been writing professionally as a journalist and as an art critic. Yeah. I'm sure that pen of yours is also going a little wild. Talk about your early performance days as a poet.
Oh, okay. So, hey, historically, there are many examples of art critics who, when they stop doing that, because it's an intense job and eventually every art critic stops doing it, it's a really cool job, by the way. It's really cool that they become poets. There are many examples of that. So you just get used to the rhythm, and writing about art, it's luscious. It's it's wonderful.
And you grew up with Mozart beside your bed, your crib.
No,
my God.
Picasso.
I'm sorry.
Right. So no, just luscious, luscious, and it's like, they're paying me to do this, really? Well, yeah, I bet you felt the same way about. Sure. I'm getting paid to do this. It's my passion. I just love it so much. So yeah, so I moved away from Columbus, Ohio, because I had been in academia too long, and it was just time to. I've been, really embroiled and, in the arts community and love the hell out of it. But it was just time to be quiet and do something else, be very private. So moved out to Santa Fe, New Mexico, just amazing place. And, I did write occasionally for the Santa Fe New Mexican about art. That was cool. But I had this place called the Aztec Street Cafe. And I've got 4 kids. And so I'd drop them off at school. And my habit was to sit in the Aztec Street Cafe, as I was used to writing. So I started writing like a maniac, just writing poems, and they just poured out of me. And it was amazing, rich period for me. And also I had teenagers and I was sort of the crash pad kids, a lot of them just stayed at my house. So I'd wake up in the morning and I'd be picking my way across the bodies on the living room, making my way to the kitchen to make, put on the coffee pot. And this one friend of my son's, Lex Wensberg, used to smell the coffee and get up and sit with me. And we would chat, drinking coffee while I was writing poems. And, at the same time, so the multitasking. And he'd say, well, let me see it. And bless him, he was 15? What an amazing critic he was. And what a wonderful, poetry companion. He was like my biggest fan, and he encouraged me. Isn't that cool?
Very much so.
And so anyhow, fast forward. So I decided to go down to Mexico. Lots of reasons. I took Spanish in high school and had visited Mexico early on in the way early 70s. And anyhow, so took off to Mexico with the plans to find a place down there and live, which I eventually did. And ended up, down in this little village called Sayulita, Nayarit, Mexico. And moved down there, and my youngest went to school there, and he's back up in Santa Fe now, but he speaks flawless Spanish because he went to school in the Mexican school, not the gringo school, speaking Spanish. Anyhow, so I cut my teeth at Bar Don Pato in the plaza of Sayulita, Nayarit, Mexico, at the open mic that is a really hip town, a lot of internationals and a lot of musicians. The music was just fab. And so they started doing this open mic, and I thought, I know I'll get up and read, but I found really quickly that, to sign up to be early, because once people start really hitting the bottle and really drinking, you don't want to be reading poems to them. Not that they were disrespectful, it's just that they couldn't focus. And anyhow, so that's how I cut my teeth as a performance poet, is which I sort of call myself, because man, if you can read to like a bilingual crowd, in a Mexican club,
that's awesome.
Everything happened. Everything that could happen happened, and you gotta have. It was important to have good peripheral vision to duck when you need. My favorite story, though, is when I read this poem called "The Summer of Love," which you might have heard it the other night, but I make pals really easily. I love everybody, and I especially love people younger than me because they're really cool. And sat down with this kid, guy who's in his 20s, 30s, whatever, and he was like, he kept saying like, "Oh yeah, the Summer of Love, 1969." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, why are you getting that from? It was 1967. He goes, no, it was 69. I'm like, what are you arguing with me? I was there. And he says, oh, it's like, well, the Gap, the Gap had this whole line of clothes called 1969. I went, I said, what? I mean, come on, dude. I said, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna write you a poem about 1967. And so you'll know. I'll just give it to you straight. So the next week I got up with the mic and I started reading Summer of Love. And in the middle of it, I decided I was going to sing Somebody to Love, in homage.
You did it beautifully the other day, by the way.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, you heard this story. So then, anyhow, so in the middle of summer, singing Somebody to Love, I'm facing the audience, and behind me is the plaza, and suddenly I'm realizing that I'm hearing all these voices behind me in the plaza, and I sort of like turn around and look. And they're all these Mexicans singing Somebody to Love. It was a happening, it was really a lot of fun. So, that's how I cut my teeth. And I put on some events, I would put on some reading events, and I knew all the other poets in town. And so, we sort of bonded together, and it was just such a supportive and fun, hip place, and I had a lot of fun with it. But eventually I wanted to come back here to the UK. I do live in the US sometimes because I want to be near my kids there, even though they visited a lot in Mexico. But I came here to be amongst people who their first language is English, and the way, especially the Brits, and I grew up, understanding and Brit speak real well, all the patter and all the weird phrasing and stuff. So it's really a delight to be around those who, English is their first language, and to be part of the the international community, especially with what dear David Syrah provides, Spoken World, and a lot of the other hosts. It's just, isn't it the most amazing, enriching experience? I mean, I know that you're just,
I find it so beautifully ironic that as we all have been in isolation, these new poet connections, these new writing connections have flourished across the globe. And we are linked up to poets, from Sri Lanka to Bangladesh to India to Vienna to Prague to Budapest.
Beirut, everywhere.
It's so wonderful. And it is, poetry is so, I think, undervalued in the West so much, and at least in America. And to find that we're building these bridges in a world they don't even know,
Right.
And poets have reached out and found our common hearts. It's so beautiful.
Isn't it though? No, I just feel so, and the irony of in these times with the pandemic and that it almost feels like, we're holding the light or something. And, we're helping to provide a beacon, I think, because so many of the poems have been about our experience now, and to be able to share these experiences and ourselves. And I think poets from any culture, any generation, we are the chroniclers. Then in an interview, I love the Paris Review. Once, I forget which poet was interviewed, but he was talking about poetry, and he says, well, poetry is simply a prayer. And I love that. I love the simplicity of it. And, it's, here we are, we're the chroniclers of our time.
Exactly. In fact, I have made the argument many times that what are the oldest stories we know? We know the stories of poets.
Yeah.
The ballads.
Yeah.
The chroniclers. Now, obviously, this is the perfect segue to hear some of the amazing, fantastic poetry of Miss Lesley Constable. Please,
Okay.
among those wonderful pieces of yours, let's hear some of your favorites. Let's hear maybe something new that you don't even trust yet. I don't know. My dear.
Oh, I'm doing that all the time.
The floor is yours.
I'm spewing them out. All right. The first one is a favorite of mine, and it's about, and I read this at Bar Pato, and it's about writing poetry. It's called The Seated Cloud. The thoughts that come to you come into your head and rumble round, or snake insidious, the ones, you know, these thoughts, the ones that have shape, their own substance and form, image, even music, but cannot be given voice. Never that, because this asks too much, like clouds forming and shifting, disappearing and reforming. They are yours, fragile, inside the workings of your mind, like when the sun hits cloud, fragile. They are amorphous, unheard, and deeply, deeply private. These ghosts of thoughts, your ghosts of ideas that form, wanting birth, yet hide, wanting, yet hide, waiting, and want, and wait. And jeer sometimes these phantoms that cannot stand up to the proof of considered thought, that cannot stand up to language, that cannot exist in the light of day, but only in containment. Is that what your life is? Is that who you are? No one knows but you. They are the formation, your thoughts, of clouds. They are the beginning. They are the seeds, clouds becoming rain, or the easy words you say, words without clouds when the sun is right up there bold and over hot in the sky, even though you are in shadow. These words you say, forming them with your mouth, your tongue, your lips. Is this you? We can falsify, we can deny, we can withhold, hold deep into us those truths which have no form, but only words, or which have only form and not words, or words that won't form and wait until forever for the true thoughts, override them with chit chat, with the mundane, the inane. But there is that moment, yes, when the weight of necessity, the weight of insistence, the weight of our own truth, the need to get these damn things out of our heads and finally, deeply say, speak, talk, write, scream, get out, get out, get out, shapes, the constructs, the towers, the rivers, the pyramids, our islands, the bridges, explode them all and talk, write, be, make the bridge, fuse them, private ideas, public talk. You are the seeded cloud. You are the rain. Make us all wet.
Beautiful. 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 Thank you so much, Lesley.
So this one is homage to my beloveds, my dear children, my 4 children. And it's a real private moment, I think, as a parent. It's called While You Were Sleeping. While you were sleeping, I was awake watching. While you were asleep, I was awake, waiting for you to wake. And I waited and watched, sometimes checking for signs, the chest rising and falling slowly. Yes, he is breathing. Yes, she breathes. The movement of the eyes behind closed lids, rapid then slow, to repeat this patterns of dreams as they arrive behind the eyes, beneath translucent eyelids, the color of flesh, your flesh, like a pearl, glowing, and the small whimpers, the singing, the short barks as you dream, the symbols of sleep, awakening, waking, awake. I've watched you as you sleep and know them all. I know you. You remained asleep. You did not stir, and me, my hands forming the ancient signs, the meaning of these deep in the body, sleeping still. These caves of desire asleep, and in sleep, waking, the chill, dark, still, calm desire, the breath of desire, the chest moving in response to the signals of behind the eyes, up and down the chest, aging in increments as I watch, constant as love, we wait. Together in the sky, strung like pearls to form a necklace in the sky, nearly imperceptible, the hint, the dark glimmer at night of these orbs shining separate, yet together, except when there is the moon up there, which like us shines like the moon. We are the moon, each our own which shines. Sleep, my love, my precious one. I will not wake you before your time. I will not wake you with my own tremors of fear or of rage which shake me, for they are my own, mine to own, she who is wakeful. While you were growing, I was grown, a tree with roots which go down to the middle of earth, my mind spiraling up now as branches, passing through the reaches and there up into the darkened sky. While you were sleeping, I traveled there, up high, and forgot myself and you. I forgot you, remembering me, and I forgot I was awake and you asleep, and forget myself, and simply kept going, wakeless or not, wakeful or not, I forgot, and imagined me, the baby this time, once again, sleeping as I was, and I will be again, wakeless, wakeful, weightless, in dream, in memory, I simply kept going.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
I've got some short ones, so yeah.
Listen, I have no problem. Please, my dear, as you're given.
Okay, this one is I live near the sea. That's sort of what I do. Right now, I'm in Weymouth, Dorset, and so the sea's just right out there. This one's called "The Sea Will Take You," and this had something to do with sort of a tragedy. I was living in Clacton-on-Sea, which is on the East Coast, on the North Sea, actually, and it can be very fierce. And went down to walk on the front, and there was a whole bunch of yellow tape. And I asked the police, and they said, "Ooh, somebody washed up." So I wrote this as a response. The sea will take you, because the sea is dangerous. You know, it's you've got to be mindful. The sea will take you if you swim past the rocks. Will it give you back? When you enter, how will it be with this, the agreement you have struck to surrender and now be one with this body large and vast and your body small? Do you know in this joy of submersion, the light, play, and sometimes fierce of the water having you, what it will do? In taking you, will the waters decide moving you? Will the sea decide? With taking you, in taking you, is that what you will allow? Or in your entering, surrendering to it in some way, do you decide? In going and being taken, where would that be and how far will you go? Do you know? To know we are small when we enter the waters is that which is hidden from you, from us, your smallness, not something you can know. It is how it is and always has been this way. It is a pact drawn up, that moment of entry, the cells of each body vast with body small, the body and body now joined and in movement. The shrieks of joy with the shock of water and surprise emitting from your throat that rivals the roar of waves, and you sing together the fierceness of life celebrating. If the sea takes you, will it give you back?
Bravo, bravo. Very
so
nice.
Thank you. This next one is about my experience in New Mexico, which is a very magical place. So I'll read it. It's about the experience of driving at night. If the darkness does not see the light, it was traveling at night that we crossed down into the desert, the still, cold, a gentle slap of awakeness. You can see clearly in the desert at night the distances, the spaces near to you and far off, quiet yet alive. You drive and see sometimes things that are not there or maybe there. It doesn't matter. If you keep driving, you forget after a while of everything. It's the stillness of it in the moment, the capture of thought and way to make it go on forever, the inner dialogue, that loud in your ear, your head, your being, that you think you are hearing it, the you inside of you, the you outside of you at the same time. You are not hearing the echo of self in the high desert, like Sister Coyote when she yips to signal to the others, or when she sings to herself, or when she sings to the moon, or nothing at all. That is not what you are hearing, the you inside of you, the you that you are hearing. You are not. It is a sense beyond hearing. Coyote knows when she hears the echo of herself in the canyon, the sound bouncing off stone and coming back to her. She is simply being in the desert at night under the moon. What you see is not what is before you, but something else. What you hear is something else. It is the way of things at night in the desert. It is okay that you do not know. If the darkness does not see the light, does it know it is dark?
Very nice. Very nice.
Well, I've just got some real short ones, I think, that I want to end up with. I tend to want to write epic things, but as things have come around, I'm sort of enjoying, smaller things, simple things.
May I read one for you?
Oh yes, please.
I was so taken by your poem about the children that it reminded me of the one I wrote for mine, and a tribute I wrote to mothers. And let me share one of those with you. I think you'll like it. And sometime, whether it's today or not, some other time perhaps, I definitely want to talk to you about, should we say, spiritual ways, and what teachers touched you. And some of you, I think clearly you're probably a woman of great vision. So I'd like to hear some of that too, and I'd be honored to share some of mine.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
I would be honored to do that. Okay, let's see here. It's close.
You seem very, very prolific. And so I'm understanding, it's like, where did I put that?
Yeah, well, I keep folders of work, and I had, having just published my first collection of poetry, I've got it all kind of semi-organized. Wow. And, but I'm looking through these pieces, not finding the one that I wanted. Let's see, there's a substitute or two.
It seems that if you had it in mind and you sparked with it, that it'd be so perfect if you could find it.
Yeah, I'll find it. Let's see here. I can always do a search. First blessings. That's right, it's an F. First gifts. There we go. Okay. Okay, here we go.
Good.
This is one that I've had the good fortune and blessings to have 3 children, and I had the extraordinary experience of my wife and I decided, after a very, very bad experience with the medical profession, to have our first at home with some midwives. Good. And it really, I think no man should make love to a woman unless they've experienced what it's like to see a woman giving birth. Because if that doesn't give you some respect for women, I don't know what does. But that being said, I think you as a woman, know exactly what I'm talking about. So I wrote this, a small tribute to mothers, because I think it is such a grace. Yeah. Okay. It's called The First Gifts. Yes, you welcomed those babes at your breast, gave them from your own life sustenance, thought first of them, their pleasure, their pain, their need, then some other, then yourself. You brought them through the most holy, sacred gate they will ever enter, into the world and into a human life. It can be readily said, you gave them the first gift. Before the gods at the cradle round bestowed those precious others, you clothed them in flesh. You gave them their first form. What cells and man and fashion could give, you gave first. Before your gift, there was nothing. And your giving self made every other giving possible. When the first cry is heard, it calls your name. When each searching hand first reaches out, it reaches out for you. When you press those tiny lips to your breast and smell those first tender breaths, that sweet garden scent is meant for you alone. As tiny fingers first begin the long, lonely search, they search first for you. Never is this new being more beautiful than when seen with your eye. Never is the kind of blessing given than that given from your eye and your heart. No wonder Mother is so universally blessed. No wonder such special blessedness belongs first and last to mothers. She has given so much of her flesh and her heart, the first gifts.
Oh, that is so profound. It's so beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm tearing up. Oh, it's
Thank
really
you.
beautiful. That's like the perfect, really perfect poem. Oh my God. Is that going to be in your collection?
Oh, it is. It is.
Oh my God. It's so perfect.
Thank you.
What's the title again, please?
The First Gifts.
Yeah, of course. Oh my God. Oh, Rick, it's so beautiful. Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Whew.
Okay. One other one I would love to share with you, if the gods will grace me to find it.
No, I understand this searching thing. I mean, if you write enough poems, you're like, where is that thing?
Well, my children, God bless them, I have a boy and two girls. Mm-hmm. And my youngest daughter, this dear magical spirit, when she was away at college, sent me a cup. And it became a tradition. So they each gave me a cup. And I take mornings, and every morning I alternate the next cup. So I drink from each of their cups every morning. And wow. With any luck at all, I even had it up for a second. Let's see if I can find it one more time. There. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. It's called Each Morning's Cup's Blessing. After I'm granted a return today, I pour water from the sacred stream into a pot where coffee is brewed. I take the brown bean, the sweet, the bitter, the spicy, so like the moments of life, precious, darkly rich with flavor, brewing them with the heat of life. And each day, one by one, I drink one day from my Holyoke cup and think of my darling summer. And the next morning from my Jan Hus cup and think of my darling meadow. Each wonderful giving cup of life and love, small containers of the incredible rich brew of life's bracing flavor. Each morning, my ritual brings me just a kiss away from these lovely girls. I've had a small part in bringing to the flavors of this richly brewed life. And cycling from one cup on one morning and another cup the next, I drink from love and love. My morning coffee, another small kiss from the rich brewed life to these small gifting cups of my darling daughters. And each morning, as my lips kiss these cups, drinking the rich flavors, I bless these girls, these women who have brought such rich flavor to my little life. I love you both. I thank you both. And with each morning's coffee cup, I kiss your rich life, thanking the sea and the sky and the river of life for allowing me to love you and to share these small draughts of the flavor of love and life. I love my daughters and drink life's rich brew to them each morning, to you and you, whether near or seeming far, just a draught and a lips kiss away, with love.
Wow. Oh, that's wonderful.
Thank you.
You just create such an atmosphere, such a place to enter. It's really magical.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow.
My dear, if you want to share one or two more, we'd be very, very thrilled to hear them.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, It's, okay. Yeah. I will do I think I'll do Being as Bird.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Do you think if I were a bird, I would not answer, sworn to silence, a pact of only circling above? And yes, what if I circle as in the habit of wings? Is it only you to be there above, looking down and down? Is it not mine too, the looking to see even the smallest of fruit there, hidden in the branches, that which is hidden from sight when we are on the ground? It is mine, it is mine, it is mine, this looking, this fruit, being as bird.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. I can see fluttering wings and that light, airy, where we live now, we have such just a bounty of birds.
Oh, you're so lucky.
we get to hear birds singing. My wife has set out, probably 8 different bird feeders across the yard. And we are constantly hearing songs. It's such a lovely experience. It's like living in a park of birds. It's really lovely.
That's wonderful. Yeah. My poems, I tend to see that the patterns there, it's like there are many birds, lots of clouds, the sea. So blah, blah, blah. But birds are right up there, aren't they?
Let's lead this on a spiritual note, because I think you're such a woman of spirit. Of the many, many teachers that have touched your life and given you keen insight, would you mention maybe one teacher that you just really helped you have new insights?
Wow, there's so many. So many. I think today I will mention Angelica Gerbis, who was in the Department of Dance at Ohio State. I was in modern dance, but I also was so interested in medieval and Renaissance dance since I studied that period a lot. And she, if you've seen any of the historical dramas, like, for example, Elizabeth I with, I forget who was the actor in that, I'm blanking. But anyhow, Angelica was so renowned worldwide for her scholarship regarding Renaissance and medieval dance that she taught so many of these people who went out and also trained a lot of the actors to do these dances in the film. So she was amazing. And so the first important rule about medieval and Renaissance dance is demeanor. And she paid me a huge compliment when she said that I had perfect Renaissance demeanor. Whatever that means.
Wow. Well, I think she was addressing your presence. You have such a divine presence, my dear.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But so I think why I'm naming her is part of medieval and Renaissance dance is presence, as you're saying, but also understanding stillness, which is just as much a part of movement. When to pause, when to be still. And it's like a spiritual concept too. So anyhow, that's, yeah, I'm going to, pay homage to Angelica Gerbis. So she was remarkable.
Let me say thank you so very much for being with us.
My pleasure.
It is a great honor to talk to Miss Lesley Constable. If you have a couple minutes, I want to share one more story with you because I think you'll appreciate it.
I'm enjoying your stories.
Well, I sometime I'll tell you how I was tossed out of the Catholic Church, but that's another story. It put me on a mission to read every holy book. I really wanted to read every holy book because I felt that what I had learned about the Catholics just didn't seem like Jesus to me. But that being said, I decided I would read every holy book and try not to just read it, but try to bring it into my heart. So that put me on a path to read comparative religion. I've read the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, the Upanishads, Tibetan, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, Book of Solomon, parts of the Torah, all kinds of religious and mythic work, okay? Well, it brought me to a place where I consider myself a Taoist. Alan Watts was a big influence on me. But I was teaching from Be Here Now, Ram Dass's book, which I'm sure you know. And we heard at our ashram that Ram Dass was coming to Miami. And we said, oh my gosh, let's somehow make sure that we get to go to Ram Dass. And literally the day I heard he was coming to town, I went immediately to our local occult bookstore and said, hey, I want some tickets. How many can I buy? My whole ashram wants to go. Let's, and they said, man, we sold out like in 10 minutes. It was just gone. But they swore that there'll be tickets available at the door. So I would go early. Okay. So the lecture was for 2:00. We were there at 9 a.m. So we're waiting outside this Unitarian church down in Miami. And to make time, we were chanting Om. Okay. So there's a group of people from my ashram. We had about 10, 12 people there. We're chanting Om, build up a good energy. Sounds good. So we're chanting and chanting and chanting. And finally, people begin to arrive. And now there's a long line. And we're at the head of the line because we were the crazy first ones there. Well, they finally opened up the door for tickets. And they said, no, I'm really sorry. We sold everything. We sold to the wall. There's no seats available. Hello, my dear. There's no seats available. So, geez, I'm really sorry. That's too bad. Wow. And so my students went, but Rick, we came all the way from Hollywood. We really want to go. And damn, couldn't you do something about this? I said, listen, okay. Now, your choices, as I see them, are to stay and chant Om and build up a good energy and make something really wonderful out of this, or you could leave. So if you want, and some people left, gone. But we stayed and we chanted Om. And we're chanting and we're chanting and we're, doing good prana exercises. And the doors open and the crowd goes in and we're still sitting there chanting and we're chanting. And an interesting thing happened. Coming down the sidewalk is a tall figure in a saffron robe. And he's walking toward us and we're chanting Om. And so when Ram Dass arrives, he stood with us and chanted Om. And he said, okay, this is wonderful. He said, I've been greeted a lot of great ways. This is marvelous. Let's go in. And we said, well, Ram Dass, we would sure like to, but they say the tickets are gone. And he said, well, let me see what I can do. So he walked in, and my students are, oh, do you think he can get us in? My God. So he's gone for a couple minutes, a couple more minutes, and he comes out. And the house manager is shaking his head. No, I'm sorry. Nothing can be done. I'm really sorry. And Ram Dass goes, come with me. So we did satsang with him on the stage. We sat with Ram Dass.
Oh, no room at the inn, so to speak, right? And so he gives you his space there on the stage. That is pricelessly wonderful. And yes, I'm just absolutely not surprised. What an amazing fellow. Yeah.
Well, my dear, I'm sure you have exactly your own stories of spirit manifesting and your enlightenments. You are clearly a very wonderful, marvelous being. It's such an honor to speak to you.
Thank you, Rick. It was just such a pleasure. Every second. There's more to talk about. I have a feeling that we're going to somehow, some way meet for coffee, as they say.
Absolutely, my dear. Absolutely. It wouldn't surprise me in the least. Just one more miracle in our lives.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rick.
Bye-bye. Namaste.
Bye-bye. Okay. Bye-bye.